All right, it is 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just want to first off welcome everyone to Lyceum Global Online Talk Series. My name is Mai Nguyen, and I work with Lyceum, which is a social enterprise that helps deliver these talks. And we started with these talks really as soon as this whole pandemic hit, and we realized that people need to be connected. And what another way, if we can't see each other physically, let's connect online and let's talk about topics that can help us all cope throughout the pandemic so that we can thrive together. And at this time, I want to introduce Dr. Annan Nguyen, who will share a little bit more about our talk tonight. Welcome,
Thank you,
Dr. Annan.
Thank you, Mai. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you. I'm very honored today to welcome guests as far as from Vietnam, some of the participants from the last Vietnamese Youth Leadership Summit. Thank you for getting up early, and I'm sure that the next hour you're going to benefit a lot from Dr. Pennington. So actually, the Lyceum Global Online Talk Series started all when the pandemic hit. So in April, we started, and we have the honor to have Dr. Pennington as our very first speaker. And now he's coming back for the third time. So yes, it's just wonderful for his spirit of service. And now we're very honored to have him back with a really good topic. It's called Meditate on the Positive. As you know, meditation is one of the key ways to enable us to really connect with our best self. And so meditation is always a way to really come back to your inner self and build up your inner strength. And Dr. Pennington is one of my mentors in the Speaker Academy in the National Speaker Association of Houston chapter. And as you know, he's by trade, he's an educational psychology major. He's a psychologist, and he's a very well-known speaker. He has a TEDx last year about some really good topic. Like he's also an award-winning author of the autobiographical Find the Upside of the Down Times. So his website is drrobspeaks.com. And I cannot tell you how much appreciated I am to welcome him again back as per the request of a lot of other participants, because Dr. Rob Pennington really have a special, unique style deliver your presentation. So without further ado, please join me to give a round of applause for Dr. Rob Pennington.
Hey! You know, I really appreciate the opportunity for being here tonight. I've got some important things to share, but about the topic meditating on the positive, I just want to point out that you get no points for being able to think positive when positive things are happening. Okay? You only get points for when you're able to think positive when negative things are happening. And that's sometimes seems impossible to do, but actually, if you practice in what I call the elementary school lessons in life, then you can do it when the graduate school lessons come, which they will. And I just want to point out that everybody who's thinking they don't know how to meditate, if you know how to worry, then you know how to meditate. And that's because when you are worrying, you're giving attention to something. You're focusing on something. You're generally meditating, but on what you don't want to have happen. And so it's like you're watering the weeds. And we know that if you just stood there watering the weeds would grow more. So that's a good analogy, because what you want to learn how to do is choose to meditate or focus on the positive. And all that really takes is just turning the hose, because it's a good analogy, because as water's flowing to a plant, it's the same thing as your mind's focus and energy flowing to a thought. And if that thought is negative, it's going to have negative effects on how you feel, on how you behave, how your body is, and the results you have in your life. And so I just want to let you know that no one causes how you think. People try to cause how you think, but who really makes you think what you think? I think it's kind of you. And that's something we need to learn how to listen to. Now, I've got a whole nother talk I want to just give you the link to about projecting a positive into the unknown. It goes in some different directions than what I want to do tonight, but I wanted to give as many resources as possible because this is a skill that's learnable. You can learn how to recognize your stress and move through it quicker. And I would refer everyone back to the first program that I did on speed through stress in 5 steps in 15 seconds. And the second program on how to turn a worry into a goal and take some action towards it. Here's some more material that you can share. I learned this many, many years ago. And I may be better able to deal with everyone because I discovered that peace happens when you don't need anyone or anything to be different than it is. The key word is need. So if you can certainly want things to be different than they are, I think that's to be predictable. I mean, we do want things to be how they are. And if you ask me, I'll tell you how I want things to be. But how many of you have a family, this is my family, who are always the way you want them to be? My guess is not. So then we would tend to lose our sense of peace because they're not doing what we know they ought to be doing. The key is not to need them to be doing that before you're going to feel okay. And there's just some practice that we can do in that. I learned this, I'm actually, that's me, you know, when I was like 35, I guess, long ago, when I had a lot more hair. And I love this insight I learned from a man named Paul Solomon. And it is, I need no excuse to experience and express pure joy. And what that means is anytime you're not happy and anytime you're not experiencing joy, it's because you got some excuse. I can't be happy. There's a hurricane coming. I can't be happy. There's a pandemic happening. I can't be happy. I've got this challenge. I've got this challenge. I've got this challenge. Those are challenges and they're stressful because we don't know how to deal with them successfully. But we don't have to know how to deal with them to practice feeling good. So you want to practice feeling good for no reason. Let me give everybody a little quick exercise. Everybody smile. Come on, no matter how you're feeling, put a smile on your face. Now see if you can hold it there for 30 seconds. Now see if you can hold your face. Hold the smile, hold the smile. See if you're thinking, well, I'm not feeling good. No, keep the smile going. Keep the smile going. You know, it's taking muscles to do this. I know, maybe you haven't practiced enough. Now, while you're smiling, try to feel bad. I don't think it works as well when you're smiling. And that's a little thing because it's actually connected physiologically to your brain. And when you're smiling, there's more endorphins going on in your brain automatically. It's just triggered that way. So learning how to do it without any reason is important. And learning how to move through stress in a more important way. So how you think about things, it makes a difference. And I want to look at both of these ways of how you think about things. So you could think of stress in all these negative ways and think of it as a problem and try to fight it, etc. That's not what you should be doing. You should be thinking about it as a possibility in some ways. When I say embrace stress, I'm saying learn from it. So your personality is divided into lessons you've learned and lessons you haven't learned, and all your stress is an unlearned lesson. So if you're experiencing stress, you just haven't learned how to deal with something. And just to reinforce again, speed through stress, I've got a video, talks about when I got shot in the center of my chest, and a workbook, how to speed through stress in 5 steps in 15 seconds. I really would highly recommend that because you need not to believe everything you think. Now, this is a strange thing because I think we all believe whatever we think is true, or we wouldn't be thinking it. We always think we're right. And if what we're thinking causes us to have an emotional reaction, we use the intensity of our emotion as evidence of the truth of our thinking. I think that's really backwards. I think the more upset my emotions are, the more off something is about what I'm thinking. So don't believe everything you think, especially if it causes you to feel some way you don't want to feel. What you could do, though, is you could practice thinking positive by thinking about something positive. You know a lot of things that are positive. For instance, what's a beautiful place you've ever been to in your life? A mountaintop, a beach, a meadow. I particularly like meadows. This is Mount Rainier in the background here. And when you're thinking about this positive place, you want to use the fact that your brain is actually two brains. You've got one part of your brain that's focused on the physical senses, all your physical senses. You've got another part of your brain that's focused on what I call the subtler senses, the senses of your imagination. So when you focus on this other brain in this meadow, you know, you want to learn how to Smell the flowers. Feel the sunlight on your face. Hear the birds. Taste the berries. Touch the grass. Use your imagination in a very powerful way to such a degree that it causes you to have some emotion. That's when you're knowing that it's working, because you're doing the same thing when you're worrying. You're imagining this negative situation to such a degree that it's causing emotional reaction. So meditating on the positive is using the same ability you have to imagine, only imagining something you want to have happen. And you start by practicing holding your mind in a beautiful, peaceful place. So I do imagine a meadow, and I do imagine the sunlight and smelling the flowers and tasting the strawberry and feeling the breeze. And I start to relax. Now, a lot of people have a lot of definitions of meditation and a lot of tools and techniques for meditation. And I'll share one that I've been using and teaching for 40 years. But I think there's an important, broad understanding of meditation that everybody ought to have. And that is that it's not just a physiological practice, it can also be a spiritual practice. And for me, to make it more spiritual is to speak to the source of life, whatever you consider that to be, and speak directly and say, hey, I am entering this experience to hear your wisdom more clearly, to feel your love more fully, and to have a difference happen in me right now as a result of our time together. And I think if you began any meditation technique with that kind of beginning, it doesn't matter what the technique is. You've set your mind in the right direction, to the highest within you, and you're asking for certain results. And I think that's just an important approach that we could do any time of day or night. Anytime you think about it, you could take a breath, relax, reassure yourself, imagine this beautiful, peaceful place, and then to begin thinking in these more positive ways and make this declaration, I guess. The specific technique I have used is called the 7 Terraces Meditation. And let me kind of move myself out of the way here. And it's about imagining going like into a meadow and then up a mountain. And every terrace in the mountain is a different color. And it also relates to certain experiences. So I've actually practiced imagining these gardens being kind of a predominantly filled with things that are of that color. Not like everything is red. Just that things that are red, like apples are red, or roses are red, or cherries are red. But they all contain the energy of that garden. So I'm not just imagining something, I'm imagining it to such a degree with a certain purpose to produce a certain experience in me. And the experience is getting excited about change. Expecting a change to happen in me now as a result of this moment. That's the first terrace. That's the first thing that I think we need to be doing every time we go and do any kind of meditation, that action is going to make a difference in me right now. The second terrace, primarily oranges, daffodils, whatever it is that comes to mind that is something in the world that would be of the color of orange, that would be in that garden. But it all has the purpose of letting go of the past. So I might think of like a Buddhist monk's robe, because that's, dying to the past. And I think this is an important transition that is valuable to us to learn how to do all throughout all the challenges of our life, is how to get excited about change and how to let go of the past, and to do it in a moment. And so to do it when you're in an important, stressful moment, you need to practice doing it. So someone who's a runner and wants to win a race, they don't just run the race at the time when they're going to be judged. They're running that race hundreds and thousands of times before the actual day of the championship. Same thing with meditation. If you want to be able to have a change happen in you in a moment of something more challenging happening, you got to practice when nothing's going on. Practice breathing, relaxing, reassuring yourself. Practice imagining the meadow and all your senses, going through these gardens, expectation of change, letting go of the past. The yellow garden is a garden of freshness. It's like springtime. So everything is new, everything's growing, and it's I am new. From a spiritual point of view, you could say what God has made me, I am. But it's experiencing being new and allowing new things to begin in you. And when do we practice these things? We would like to have the experience, I think, more often, but unless you're actually practicing them, and I use the imagery in these gardens to remind me of the purpose of each one. And I'm going through these changes. The green one is where I meet a presence of love, whatever you consider that to be. And what would it be like walking in a garden with someone who loves you unconditionally, who knows everything about you, loves you anyway. You don't have to talk. I don't know if you've ever had a friend like that, where you could just walk with each other. You don't actually have to say anything because it's just cool being together. That's kind of what it feels like. And you want to practice feeling love, not waiting around for someone to prove to you that they love you. Because, I think the purpose of marriage is to discover all the ways in which you don't love each other. Because what's true is you really do, but you've got all these beliefs about it that get in the way. So I want to always know that I love myself, and I have to practice feeling that, especially when other people are not doing it the way I want them to do it. And I think a consequence of this being able to experience feeling loved is I have a serenity. And the image of the blue garden is like a quiet lake where things are still. And there's a deeper level of peace. And at that level, I'm able to move to the violet garden, the purple garden, where I can take responsibility for abilities that I may not have implemented, because I want to be able to have more abilities. And at the top of the garden, top of the mountain, white garden, absolute harmony, eternal duration, limitless power. I practice experiencing things as I move through this meditative experience. Now, there's a lot more to it, but I just wanted to give you a taste of these changes because I think they're so important for all of us to learn. And the teacher of mine, here is an audio that I've gotten of him that I just put up on my website. He passed away some years ago, and it's called The Spark of Life, which I'll just take you through this whole process as a guided meditation. And I'd encourage you to practice that. Resource-I audios, thesparkoflife.mp3. So all of this will be in the recording when you get to it at another date. And so I would hope you can practice some of that, because really what we want to learn how to do is just be calm at all times. And that's something you can practice. That's something that meditation can allow you to experience. And for me, it kind of lowers the baseline of stress for me during the day. We're always going to have stressful things happen. We're always going to have challenges. Our mind's always going to project a negative into the unknown. But how do I, throughout the day, lower the baseline? Take myself back to a place of calmness. That's what meditation can do. We need to learn how to be selective in what we fight our battles. And, this whole thing about sometimes peace is better than being right. I've got a little video I'm going to show that talks more about that in my own life. Because I think sometimes we'll go for being right and in the process lose peace. So Dalai Lama said a great thing: do not let the behaviors of others destroy your inner peace. Who's going to be the way you want them to be all the time? Everybody's got their own lessons. What I've learned to do is assume that in the eternity of time, everyone will learn their lesson. So that's my prayer for them. And that helps me feel better in the moment when I'm upset that they're not learning their lessons. And in all of those moments, I can imagine a beautiful, peaceful place. This is actually Monet's garden. There's a picture from his garden. And what I didn't realize, his paintings are beautiful. He actually created the gardens in order to paint them. So when you see a painting, it's not just painting of a garden. He imagined this beautiful, peaceful place and actually manifested it physically by how he chose what plants to put where. So he was first a fantastic gardener and creating this imaginary scene in his mind, and then produced it in reality, and then he immortalized it in his paintings. And I think we can do something similar to that in our own lives. Because at the end of the day, what really matters, I think, is that your loved ones are well, you've done your best, and that you're thankful for all you have. And this whole path to enlightenment called gratefulness, I think, is an important part of the process. Most people have heard about the serenity prayer. I just want to talk about that for just a minute, because I think it's another doorway to peace. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Most people, I think, when they read that, they hear something different. I think most people hear, when I am wise enough to know the difference between what I can change and what I can accept, then I'll have serenity. That's not what it says. What it says is that you start by having serenity, and it also tells you how to get it. The source of life, grant me, give me. I don't have to pay for this. I don't have to deserve it. You just have to be willing to accept it as a gift. And I think that another word for that is peace. And when you create that, I think the consequence is that you are able to accept the things you cannot change easier. And I think you then have the courage to change the things that you can by realizing you don't have to know how, but you can figure it out. And the wisdom, I think, comes more from stillness. Creativity comes more from stillness. Our ability to deal with the challenges in our life comes more from taking moments to be calm. But I think most of us have grown up thinking that's a waste of time. I've got to be doing something all the time. You know, we've had maybe parents who found us not doing something and said, well, why aren't you doing something? And I'll find something for you to do. But I want to kind of end my little presentation and we get more into the discussion by sharing a video that was made by Goldcast. I got over 3.5 million views of this video. And it's a little short clip from a talk I gave, but I think what they've done is remarkable in adding much more to it than was actually there in my talk. So, I forgot to click on the button to do this audio. So let me try one more time. Yeah, it was clicked, okay. And let's, Lon, give me a thumbs up if you can hear this okay. I believe that feeling loved is more important than being right. I think we all agree. Again, we forget in the middle of the argument. In my shower, we have this knob that you pull to turn the water on, right and left, hot and cold, a little plunger that you push that sends the water either up to the shower or down into the tub. I, like everyone I knew, pulls the plunger so the water comes up through the shower. I put my hand in, wait till the temperature gets the way anybody else do this, and when it gets the way I want, then I get in. My wife, for some other reason, has this experience that when she turns on the water, she expects it to be going down into the tub. So she leans in to put her hand underneath the faucet. Where's the water coming from after I've used it? From the shower. What does it do? Hits her in the head. How's she feeling? Rod, you left the shower on! And we get into this argument about who's going to have the plunger in or out. Haven't you ever had silly arguments that were intense about that? Who's going to control who? Whose right way is the right way? That went on for a long time. Power struggle. And somehow, I don't know why, sometime when I was finishing the shower, I thought of what was going to happen. And I saw myself having a choice of doing something with that plunger to have it go up in the shower or down into the tub. And I knew very clearly that if it went down in the tub, how would my wife feel? She'd feel loved. And isn't that the way we want the people we love to feel? We want them to feel loved. And I saw how simple and easy that was. But I had to realize the difference between a requirement and a preference. That you don't go to war over preferences. In fact, when it's not a requirement, by definition, you've agreed to not agree. You've agreed to not have to have it your way. That's what not a requirement means. And so, push the plunger in. And when she comes in and the water hits her hands, she feels loved. And just to be a little poignant about it, she passed away about 4 years ago. And when I take a shower, I am still pushing the plunger in. It makes me feel loved. Well, I appreciate you taking a moment to listen to that. And I appreciate you listening to what I've shared. And I hope I've planted some seeds that could be valuable. And I hope you have some questions, because there's a whole lot more to share about all of this. And the main point I want to make is that, if you know how to worry, you know how to meditate. It's just about learning how to create opportunity to think on something more positive, and use your imagination to create a beautiful, peaceful space. And whatever you do as a tool or technique, do it to hear love's voice more fully and hear wisdom more clearly and have a difference happen in you. I think that'll make a difference in your life. So Alon, any questions? Anybody got any discussion? We're here to take this further.
I really like the statement that you mentioned about it's better like to love than to be right. You know, when I was young, I totally think different way.
Of course, me
the
too.
need to be right, the need to be right all the time, right? But as I grow older, I guess it comes with wisdom. And in relationship, you want to be kind, to be loving, than just to be right. Yeah,
And
it's deep. Yeah.
oh, is someone asking a question?
No, actually, I think he forgot to turn off his mic.
Oh, I see. Okay. So we do have, oh, there you go. Dr. Rob has shared in the chat room with everyone the resource links. Also, Kathy have a question, Dr. Pennington. She said, love, thank you for sharing the last bit. How do you know you have done your best for your loved ones? We always want to.
Yeah, my guess is they're going to let you know when they think you're not. Okay, so I would start with that. You know, I think you have to be 100% responsible for a relationship, not 50%. And it's easier to do that when you're very clear with yourself about what your requirements are versus your preferences. So requirements by definition are non-negotiable. They're not debatable. You either agree to this or the relationship's over. They're deal breakers. That's what a requirement is. Everything else, which basically is most everything, is a preference. I would like it, but it's not a requirement. And I think what that does is it eliminates a lot of things that we would tend to lose our peace, lose our sense of feeling love because someone isn't doing what we would want them to do, what we think someone would do if they loved us. When you're really clear about what your requirements are and they meet your requirements, then there's no more testing of the relationship. Then there's a piece that happens just because we are in this relationship together. Now, my purpose is how to make that person enjoy their life and my relationship with them as much as possible. What can I do to make their day better? Now it takes some emotional maturity. You know, you have to learn how not to blame others for how you're feeling. As long as you think someone else can cause you to feel something, you're always going to be upset with them making you feel some way you don't want to feel. So learning, you know, really what it means to love yourself, which is, you know, experience peace without needing anyone or anything to be different than they are, makes you a better person, able to recognize someone else's needs and hopefully meet them before they even know they need it. Learning to listen to what they're saying. Now, if they're not talking very much, write them letters, ask them questions. You know, so much happens in conflict where someone says one thing and we just argue back immediately. And most of the time, if you really think about it, we believe that most of our arguments are because of a misunderstanding. So if you could learn how to notice your emotional upset quicker and breathe and relax and do the stress management stuff, and then just say, tell me more about that. What is it that you want me to know? I can tell this is important. You know, I have a website, successfulworkrelationships.com, where I've got models like 3 questions to end conflict, 5 levels of communication, 6 stages of a successful negotiation, and a little 3-minute video of how to empty someone of their ideas so there's room for yours. Successfulworkrelationships.com. I'll put that in the chat too.
Thank you.
Hope that's helpful.
Kathy?
I have a question, Dr. Pennington. This one is something that I encounter when I talked about the pandemic. So now we are in the pandemic, right? And being practicing grace, which is like I'm grateful, I'm happy with the blessing that I have. Then when I shared that happiness with some of my friends, and she asked me the question, don't you feel guilty? Don't you feel guilty that you feel so happy when everybody around you are so obsessed with sadness?
Yeah. And if you cared about them, you would not be happy. Now, I think
exactly. That's what she told me.
Yeah, and I think there's something called empathy where you can be concerned about someone and wanting to be helpful to them, but you don't have to cause yourself to feel bad to prove to them that you care about them. That's how a lot of people have been taught. Of course I worry, it's because I love you. Well, you can love someone without worrying about them. I mean, actually, love would be knowing that they could handle the challenges of the pandemic. Now, whether or not they could hear me say that or not, that's a different question. Maybe if I said it, they would feel like I didn't care. So maybe the first thing I need to do is listen to them about how the challenges are, what's frustrating for them, what their worries are, and not need them to feel good. So I feel good. I can feel good whether they do or not.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. If you're going around being happy all the time, most people go, "What's wrong with you?"
and again, it's not specifically saying that I'm happy, right?
No, but you just are.
But we just exude that kind of energy. And I have a sister that she's my opposite. She always finds opportunity to be sad, right? And to be entitled to be sad. And I try to change that perspective by sharing her. It's possible that you can feel good.
Yeah, that's challenging, especially if she's not paying you to help her.
Exactly, right.
When we care about people, we do want to be quote unquote helpful, but a lot of people can't hear an idea that would be helpful to them if they don't feel their hurt, their worry, their pain is understood.
So acknowledge her pain first, and then
absolutely. And I'm always kind of waiting, and I'm not very patient with this. That's my lesson. Is try to be interested enough to see when the person's mind will turn to be curious about another way of dealing with it. That may take lifetimes to get to for some people. So the trick is not to pick up the contagiousness of someone else's worry, fear, anxiety, and be present, because I think a calm mind can generate a healing presence, even if you say nothing. In fact, sometimes that might be much more powerful than saying something quote unquote encouraging. Is just to be willing to be present with however someone is feeling, because that's so rare. Mm-hmm. We so quickly want to reassure somebody, and I'm just as bad as that as anybody, and so I have to learn how to be quiet and just help think through the process of the challenges that are there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pennington. We have another question, and that question from Woo Woo is how to accept if someone totally isn't empathetic and rude. Basically, someone who's not empathetic and is also rude.
How do you deal with them?
Yeah.
You spend less time with them.
Yeah.
Okay. You protect yourself from people who are abusive. Now, they may be a family member. You may have married them. So that presents other problems. But you need to fill your life more with people who are, kind and generous and empathetic and compassionate, the more that you can. And the people who aren't like that, you need to limit your time with them, or at least, do the diligent thing of, are you wanting help with this? Sometimes when someone's angry, one of the things I know is that they are telling me something that's important to them and that they don't think is important to me. They're also telling me I don't want to hear whatever they're saying. So sometimes being rude, etc., is a passive-aggressive way of dealing with being angry. Mm. So sometimes directing them to say, seems like you're angry at me, are you? Because the way you just talked to me, or the way you just treated me, feels like you were angry. Were you angry? And so you're kind of holding up a mirror a little bit. And if they say, yeah, I'm angry. Okay, well, tell me what are you angry about? you know, and try to get them into dealing with whatever the issue is. A lot of people just don't know how to deal with their emotion. They don't know how to deal with conflict. They don't know how to process the inevitable challenges in relationships without taking it personally.
Mm-hmm.
So you could use someone who's difficult to practice on.
We have another question from Vin. How can I stop my mind from wandering while meditating?
Oh, you can't. In the Orient, the mind is called a chattering monkey. So here's the trick. It's a long-term process. So every time your mind goes off, you just recognize it and you just bring it back. Just gently bring the lamb back to the fold. Don't go, hey, what are you doing over there? Stop that. I'm supposed to be meditating. You know, that's just more distraction. Just go, oh, not now. But you have to have the focus, you know, come back to the meadows, come back to being engaged, and then it'll go away. And then you bring it back, and then it'll go away. And every time you sit down, for a significant period of time, your mind's going to go to other things. And it may be that that's what you really ought to be thinking about more than meditation. So take a minute to think about, okay, I need to deal with that, make a note about it, then you can let it go. Then when another thought comes, okay, is this something I need to deal with? Or is this just a random interruption? Or no, this is a problem I haven't solved. Because I think meditation is kind of a double-edged sword. It's like as you bring your mind down to a calmness, whatever's been unconsciously stirring up, whatever issues aren't being dealt with, tend to come up, tend to come to consciousness. And so that's good. That's a benefit of meditation, but you don't need to work on them right then. You could just make a note about it. Oh, I need to think about, you know, my relationship with this person, or I need to make a to-do list about that. Then you let it go and you come back to the meadow. And over a period of time, and I'm, you know, talking months of regular practice, you'll get to where your mind kind of stays where you put it.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, don't worry about that it goes away. That's part of the process. Just bring it back. You know, just bring it back.
Can I share some experience?
Please.
Yeah, so I actually practice meditation 30 to 40 minutes every day. And before I started that practice, you know, nobody could imagine I could do that. And I that myself too, because I am always on the go, you know, I have like tons of things, you know, in my plate at the same time. I work like 80 hours a week. It's just like a crazy, crazy woman that running around all the time. So having myself sit down, doing nothing, and have my mind clear, it just seemed an impossible task to me. But then I love challenge, so I took the class and I just started. But you know what? After a couple of months, when I start practicing it regularly, and I just cannot go out starting the day without it. So
you start to discover the difference it makes in the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's not something you can really predict. I mean, I can say it, it'll make a difference in your day. But you have to experience the difference that discipline makes in how you feel during the day and how much more flexible you are in responding to things. But I have found it's almost like a little magic happens. It's like more synchronicity happens, more coincidences. Maybe I'm just noticing them, but it sure seems like a helping hand comes out of nowhere unexpectedly right when I'm needing it more often. And again, it may just be my change in perspective, but it might actually be that that's how the universe works. So one of the things you said is sitting down to do nothing. I want to challenge that. That's certainly the way we think about it. I'm not doing anything. Actually, I think what we're doing is the most important human activity we could do. That the quality of everything else is influenced in a positive way by taking those few moments to take our mind and our body, our soul to a beautiful, peaceful place, and in a way be fed by that.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think it does produce greater peace and the ability to accept the things we cannot change, and courage to change the things we can, curiosity about how to change the things we can. And I think greater wisdom occurs spontaneously, even increased intuition.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to see things you might not have seen otherwise, my experience, occurs in proportion to the amount of time I meditate versus not. So there's a lot of benefits that come from doing what we think of as doing nothing.
Mhm. And thank you, Dr. and Dr. Pennington. I just wanted to add, and I think a lot of people sometimes think meditation is just sitting there, but you can still be, from my own practice of meditations, is you can be cleaning the dishes, you can be taking a walk, you can be, it's just where your mind is focused. So you
Exactly.
can enjoy a painting. You don't have to just sit and meditate.
That's true. And I think children have more awareness of the world of their imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of overlaps with the world of reality, so much so that some parents are going, now that's just your imagination, trying to differentiate that from reality, because kids are treating it like it's real. But I think as we practice using that part of our mind more consciously in an activity like meditation, you learn to be more conscious of what you're creating in your mind during the waking day.
Yeah.
And you can learn to have that kind of meditative experience. I think there was even a book, I forgot, it was like in the early part of the century, Brother Joseph, I think who it was, he talked about, his job was washing dishes, like you were saying. And he realized everybody thought God was in the sanctuary. And that's where you were holy. You weren't holy anywhere else, just in the sanctuary. And he thought, well, God must be kind of like everywhere, like right here where I'm washing dishes. And so he became enlightened by just starting to feel like wherever he was sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And treating everything and everyone as sacred. And he became a wise person by doing that. In the story of Siddhartha, and the Buddha, is that he sat on the side of a river as a ferryman, just taking people back and forth, just watching the world go by. And in that moment, he, discovered some new insights. And when he sat down at the Bodhi tree, I'm not going to get up until something happens. I think that's the kind of excitement and expectation of the first terrace, is I'm excited about this happening to me now. And I really think those steps are important for us to practice however you do it. Whether you do it in the meditation process I talked about, or you just practice getting excited about the day and letting go of the past and feeling new and feeling loved. And, those are important skills to practice. Mm-hmm. All throughout the day, like you're saying, Mike.
Yes, thank you. Once again, Wu said, thank you, Dr. Rob. You answered my question. This was a different question you answered earlier, but thought I share with you, which has bothered her for 10 years.
My gracious, Wu. Thank you so much. My gracious.
Yes. And Kathy said, yes. Thich Nhat Hanh said, meditating is not just sitting quietly. Thank you. Anyone else with any more questions? We have 4 minutes left, so I will probably just leave it to one more question left before we wrap up. Anyone?
I know lots of stuff.
Yes.
I've been very fortunate to have a lot of great teachers.
And it's an awesome presentation. We would record this section, and we would send it out to the participants so that you can listen and you can, get. And if you send us the presentation, we will send it as well.
Yes.
You can, if we don't have any questions, we can talk a little bit about.
There's one more question I'd like to answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you let go of the past when you can't forget it? I would say, since your mind's continually stuck on that past event, that there's an unlearned lesson there. So what I would focus on is what do I need to learn from that lesson, from that event? And one thing might be, how would I have handled it differently if I knew then what I know now? Because it may be that you have a future opportunity to practice it. That's one thing. It could be that there's something that needs to be forgiven. And forgiveness is not making it okay that what the person did was, I don't forgive them for that. I forgive them for their ignorance. I forgive them. Forgiveness is for you. It's so you no longer continue the harm of the past. So you don't forget the history of your life. I mean, that's there. You just no longer recreate the pain in the present.
Awesome. Thank you.
And some things require therapy and some things require medication.
That's
It
right.
doesn't make sense if we keep, something happened like 20 years ago, still bothering you every day, right? So when you ask that question, do I want to continue to be bothered by this every single day, even if it happened like 14 years ago, 10 years ago? And the choice is yours. Like you can choose to move forward, or you choose to anchor on that pain and continually, being suffering from some pain that happened like 15 years ago.
Some pain is so intense that you can't just turn your mind and change your thinking. That's what counseling and therapy is about, is to go back and heal the pain of the past. Often what we need is to have someone hear the hurt that we had. If the person who was involved in it years ago could have heard it, it could have been released then. But they can't hear it. They probably wouldn't want to hear it. But we still need someone to hear the pain in order to help us let it go so that we can move on from that and what the lesson is in there.
And, oh, actually, I read the time wrong. We have 11 minutes, so it's good. I was thinking there's 3 minutes left, but we're good. We can still have one more question. I myself wanted to maybe to see if you can elaborate. You said something earlier that really stuck with me, is that I think a lot of time we're stressed and we're always looking for peace, but peace only happens when you don't need anyone or anything to be different than what it is. And I find that seems so trivial, yet it's so hard. So hard to achieve.
Let me differentiate need and want.
Yes.
Perfectly okay to want someone to be different than they are. Perfectly okay to want there not to be the challenges that we happen here. We can't not want, that's fine. So I'm just saying not need before I'm going to feel good about me. Not need them to be different before I'm going to, I have like 3 definitions of unconditional love. One is, it's okay with me they're on the planet.
Yes.
Okay, that's the first one. The second one is, it's okay with me that they have their unlearned lessons. Third thing is, I'm only going to make supportive agreements that support me and support them. So, for instance, being with someone who has a very painful unlearned lesson that makes them so painful that they cause pain for everybody else is not something I want to agree to be with. So, loving them is not being with them and putting up with their destructive behavior. A teacher told me once, he said, if someone has to hit bottom in order to learn what responsibility they have for the challenges of their life, the most loving thing you can do is help them get there as fast as possible.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Can you repeat that third sentence again? I'm going to type the third conditions that you have.
Okay, it's okay that they're on the planet.
Yeah.
It's okay that they have their unlearned lessons.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to make supportive agreements.
Okay.
Agreements that support me and to support them. Okay. And I think that's a practical definition of unconditional love. Because I think a lot of people think unconditional love is just putting up with however a person's going to be. And no, that's not unconditional love. I can love them. I don't have to put up with them.
Yeah.
I don't have to agree to participate with them being destructive. I can turn the cheek once, not 100 times.
Yeah.
So peace happens when I don't need anything or anyone to be different than they are. Wow. That's a good goal. There are times when I can experience that, but I have emotional attachments to things that I want to be the way I want them to be. And that pulls me out of any peace and in distress and frustration and upset and worry and fear and hurt and anger. But I can learn to recognize that quicker and move through it faster. I can breathe, I can relax, I can reassure myself, I can get positive and look for some humor. I can come back to, oh, okay, why are they behaving that way? Well, they don't know how to deal with that any differently. They think it's going to get me to do what they want me to do. Is that something I want to participate in? What am I need from them? And I feel good about how I've communicated it. And at some point, I'm going to go next.
There's another question here, Dr. Pennington. Some pain you think that past was the past, but sometime you are recalled back by other, you would be pain again. So do I really forget it, or did I deal with it well?
There are painful things. Okay, my wife passed away some years ago. That's painful, you know, and that's sad. I mean, it's not as painful as it was because it's been so long. And every time the pain hits me, I kind of lean into it. So I don't fight it, you know. I choose to grieve. But then it's over, and, you know, I go on to a new experience. So learning how to recognize stress, pain, worry quicker, and move through it faster, that's a skill that's learnable. When someone else's pain, let's see, the question is, some pain you think was passed away, but sometimes you were called back by the other would-be pain again, that I really forget it or deal with it. You know, I think if it keeps coming back to mind, I would just be curious why I'm thinking about that. And what did I learn from it? Is there still something to learn from it? Sometimes writing about these kinds of things is very helpful. Sometimes that's a way of getting a deeper insight. Learning how to interpret your dreams and looking at the symbolism of things can sometimes give you the same techniques are learned for looking at the symbolism of past events, because your life is kind of a dream. And learning how to look at things symbolically is not ways most of us are taught. But certain languages are based on symbols. Like in the English alphabet, each letter doesn't mean anything. But in Hebrew, Sanskrit, certainly hieroglyphics, Chinese, Japanese, these are based on each word, each letter is a word. And so it's symbolic of deeper meanings of things. So people learn to think more symbolically in other cultures than in our culture. And yes, Vin, I will accept your friend requests. So I hope that Lin Rong was helpful. I'm not sure if I understood the question. Please clarify if I haven't.
This is very helpful for interpersonal communication, Dr. Pennington, and also.
Well, I think that's where most of our stress is.
Yeah.
You know, and most people think their stress is about not enough money and not enough time, but I think it's mainly about the challenges we have in our relationships.
And mostly it's because our expectations are not met.
Well, it's the difference between a requirement and a preference. When we say our expectations are not met, one, we probably didn't ever tell them what our expectations were. If they loved us, they should just know. And the other thing is confusing our preferences with the requirements. Treating preferences as if it's a requirement is another big cause for most pain in relationships. If you go to my website, drrobspeaks.com, go to the blog, do a search on preferences. I have a whole video and blog on the importance of requirements versus preferences.
You have so much material out there, Dr. Rob.
Well, you know, and doing this for 40 years, it's easy to generate a lot of stuff.
Yes, and I really appreciate that you're taking time to be with us, because all of these pieces of wisdom, I hope that it will bring a light to all the people. And we have a very full section today, and some section as far as from Vietnam. So I would be
grateful.
Yeah, I would be interested in knowing from the folks from Vietnam how do you feel? How do you? Yeah, Vin showed the hand. Can you just turn on the mic and say a few things?
Thank you so much, Dr. Aguilar and Mr. Benton. Rob. It's such a good, a helpful thing that I have been teaching during one hour, and I think it's really interesting and it helped me a lot. And thank you so much for having me tonight. And in my country is in the morning to receive so many knowledge and gain my knowledge a lot. Thank you.
Awesome. And it's because you're willing to learn. You see, you're willing to take some pain of getting up early.
Yes.
So that's the reward.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Vin.
Well, thank you first off, once again, Dr. Pennington, always so informative. Definitely have to rewatch the recording because there's just you really share a lot of simple ideas, but you go deep into it, and so I definitely need to re-listen again over and over.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you everyone for attending our talk today. So we will be sending out an email to ask for you to please help us answer a very quick survey, like a minute, just to let us know so that we can continue to improve. And if you need any other resources, please feel free to connect with us. We have a group online. It's on Facebook. It's called Let's Connect Through Social Distancing, which we plan to continue to connect even beyond COVID. And we also have our Facebook page, Lyceum, and you can go to lyceumglobal.net. That's our website, just to see all of our content from the past. And here we just want to share with you every month we like to bring up different speakers to share on different topics. So our next speaker will be Dr. Renee Skelton, who will be speaking about raising emotionally intelligent children, and Dr. Pennington added during pandemic, which is even another layer to that. So it will happen on Thursday, September 10 at the same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. So please, if you can log on, I'll send out an email to everyone that registered today anyway, so you have the link to continue. And once again, Dr. Pennington is on our group.
But thank you so much for your heart and your kindness for spending an hour with us.
Oh, I'm grateful
Always,
for the opportunity.
we really appreciate, and we learned so much within such short time. And we will have that recording. And also on behalf of Lyceum and all the people who benefit from your talks, I just want to sincerely thank you. And we hope that we will have some opportunity to really interact with you in some sort of fashion to really acknowledge your support and kindness.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining today. And we look forward to hearing. Oh, by the way, we also have a YouTube channel, Lyceum Global. So make sure you sign up for that. Kathy, thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. And we hope to see you sometime soon in the next section. We will inform you through the email. And when you receive the survey, please help us to give us some input. All right.
Great.
Now you
Thank
can
you.
all open the mic and say goodbye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
And to the Vietnam people, good day. Okay.
Thank you.